Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Stephen Kemp. I am the 2020 chairman of the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, and we want to welcome you. This is part of our ongoing series of special events that we have scheduled through our various committees. This is our Public Policy Committee. And today we're very honored to have Jessica Gonzalez, state representative from our area, as our speaker to talk about the issues which the Texas legislature will face. The Texas legislature will be meeting in January of 2021. We already know a lot of the issues that they'll face. Most significantly, probably funding, because we've seen the Texas Comptroller indicate that there's going to be a rather significant miss in tax revenues, and we can expect that the tax revenues that will be collected during the next biennium will also be significantly less than what we've come to expect. So there's going to be some hard issues, and we do appreciate Representative Gonzalez and all that she will be doing representing our area and our community and our state. I'll turn it over to Crystal.
Thank you, Steve, and welcome everyone. We are very excited. My name is Cristal Retana, and I am the Public Policy Committee Chair for this year. We're really excited to welcome our own Oak Cliff area State Representative Jessica Gonzalez. I'm going to do a quick bio, but before I do, I want to just go over some housekeeping. We will be having a Q&A after our presentation. So if you, throughout the presentation, have a question you would like to ask Representative Gonzalez, please feel free to post it on the chat box, and then I will be reviewing and asking those questions at the end of our presentation. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our esteemed guest. Representative Gonzalez is currently serving her first term as state representative for District 104. Throughout her short time in the Texas House, she has dedicated her time to reforming our criminal justice system, expanding voting rights, and fighting for affordable housing. She earned her Bachelor's of Arts degree in Criminology and Criminal Justice from the University of Texas at Arlington, and later attended Western Michigan University Cooley School of Law. Today, Jessica practices personal injury at her law firm Gonzalez, PLLC, located in District 104. Throughout her life, Jessica has remained conscious of her family's courage and determination to attribute to her ambition, strong work ethic, and values to her parents. Representative Gonzalez plans to use her diverse educational, professional, and policy experience to bring positive change to House District 104. She serves as Vice Chair of the Texas House LGBTQ Caucus and the Vice Chair of NHCSL's Human and Civil Rights Task Force. Representative Gonzalez, thank you so much for being with us today, and we look forward to hearing about what's going on in the legislature on the state side and giving us a sneak peek to next session. So with that, I will turn it over to you.
Good morning. It's good to see some familiar faces on this meeting. So it's hard to predict what next session is going to look like, especially with the November elections approaching. As far as what the makeup's going to look like, for next session. Especially since we have to. One thing that we know we're going to have to do again is elect a new speaker, and that will, I think, the makeup of what the House will look like after November, and also who we ultimately elect as the next speaker will determine what the temperament will ultimately be, in the House, in January. That's what happened this last session. We had a new speaker. Democrats gained seats, and we definitely didn't see a lot of the same battles that legislators faced the session prior to me joining. Folks are very hopeful. I mean, there's been polling that has come out as far as folks that are challenging some. Republican representatives and Democrats, or folks are looking forward to gaining some more seats. I think that will definitely have an impact on who we ultimately elect as the next speaker. Some other things that we're going to be facing is also just House administrative type issues with the pandemic. The House administration, the committee. They're seeking our input and just trying to figure out what's the best way for us to start our business in the legislature and be as most effective as we can, and also just in a manner that is safe for not only us but the public and our staff, which will be difficult for those of you who have been to the Capitol during session. It could be a little crazy, and so there are lots of people, and so there are things that the House is considering. For example, plexiglass. They've been putting plexiglass, in certain meeting areas around the Capitol. Giving members the option of putting plexiglass. Things that we're going to have to consider is limiting access to the Capitol, as far as whether it's it being open to the public, how we're going to manage meetings, with lobbyists, with our constituents, with people who want to just come in, and talk to us about their issues, and just. So that's going to be, that's definitely going to be, there's definitely going to be limitations. We only have 140 days to get things done. It's not very long, and in the beginning we have to vote on the budget. And so that takes a lot of our time in the beginning. So if we're going to have limitations as far as how we're able to conduct business, it might limit what we can get done, unfortunately. As far as bills going to committees and witnesses, that are going to be in the room to testify. So there are definitely lots of things that we have to figure out before we go back to the Capitol. There may be limitations as far as, your staff, as far as, maybe limitations on how many bills we file, because of, we're going to have to face these limitations. And as I mentioned a bit ago, before we're able to actually, conduct business as far as filing bills, well, we can file bills before we even start session, but before we're actually able to bring them to the floor to consider them, we have to vote on Article 1, which is the budget. That takes some time for us to do. The comptroller, announced, I think in July, that we're going to have a serious deficit in the budget, and these shortfalls are going to make the budget very, very tight, especially with dealing with the pandemic, and needing money for programs to help folks that have been impacted by the pandemic, and especially with our continued need to focus on public education. We did address that this last session, added a lot more money into public education. It was definitely something that we need to go back and address this next session. And so, it wasn't sustainable. The money was taken from the rainy day fund, and these shortfalls, even in the rainy day fund, as well as the comptroller predicts that we're going to have, it's going to make it very difficult, for us to figure out how we're going to fund everything that we need to fund. But there's some things that we can do. We have to start thinking about what are alternate sources, of revenue for us to be able to fund all these important programs, and also, addressing, the impact that the pandemic has had on, the people of Texas. One thing that we can do is, Medicaid expansion. I know that for sure, people, there's some legislators that are looking into, working together to file a piece of legislation to expand Medicaid. In the past, the governor could infuse billions of dollars into the economy right away by applying for a waiver to expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. And since 2013, Republicans have turned away an estimated $10 billion each year, and really just to make a political point. In the 37 states that have expanded their Medicaid programs, many have reported tens of thousands of new jobs generated as a result of that decision. The expansion provides a necessary financial relief across the budget by alleviating the states and cities and counties' responsibilities to fill the gaps in, for healthcare, freeing up revenue, and easing the pressure on property taxes. So that's one, definitely one way that the state can help as far as creating more, adding more money to the budget, and giving us more money to use for to fund these important programs. Another thing that we can look at that other states have done is look into passing cannabis legislation. A full legalization of marijuana, cannabis, has shown to have generated thousands and thousands of dollars for states that have passed it. This money could be used to continue funding public education, with which, like I said, I mean, we addressed it, last session, but it's something that was not sustainable, and so we definitely need to have our focus on that, as well. Another thing that we can look at, my top priority next session is filing a comprehensive non-discrimination bill. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, I announced it several months ago that I was going to be filing this bill, working with Equality Texas, Texas Competes, which is the business coalition of Equality Texas, HRC, and several chambers of commerce, that support this bill. It shows that diversity and inclusion, it increases tourism, and therefore there's more money that is, more jobs and more money that we can use at a state level and also at a local level. The bill would, expand and protect those in the areas of employment, public accommodations, and housing. We currently don't have those protections for folks who, to protect people who, for sexual orientation and gender identity. I will share the report done by Dr. Perryman, who is an economist, a well-respected economist, that did a comprehensive report on this that shows the impact that this will have on our state. And one of the numbers that he mentioned was that he estimated that passing this comprehensive bill in 2021 would lead to a total increase in business activity in the state by 2025, an estimated 19.8 billion in annual gross product and 180,000 new jobs. And so as we deal with this deficit in the budget, as we deal with billions of people or thousands of people have lost their jobs, due to the pandemic, many businesses have had to close their doors, and so these jobs and this money could really help our state get back on its feet, as a result of COVID. Some other things that we can expect that are going to be filed next session is legislation regarding police reform. As far as details, I don't have the details as far as what type of legislation, but the Black Caucus is taking a lead, on these issues, and I'm in full support of whatever legislation that they intend to file. So we can definitely, expect that we're going to see, those, especially, as a Black Lives Matter movement, we do need to address this issue, and several other areas in criminal justice reform. We can also expect to see, and I hope that we don't, but there have been legislators that have already, said that they were going to file, some legislation, anti-LGBTQ legislation, especially, related to transgendered youth. We've seen that legislation like that filed in other states, and legislators have mentioned that, the ones that are that in the past, filed, anti-LGBTQ legislation, have announced that they intend to do the same here. Some other things we're going to be dealing with is, this is a redistricting year, and so with us trying to get the census information, which I believe that they've said that we're not going to get that information until much later, and so we can definitely expect that we're going to go into a special session, especially to address redistricting, whether it's one or two special sessions. I'm not sure, but we can most definitely expect that we're going to go into a special session next year, especially since like I mentioned, and initially, that we're going to be dealing with certain limitations as far as how we can conduct. And so if we aren't able to get our work done that we need to get done during the regular session, we just have to keep coming back until we're able to address all the issues that we need to. So I mean, overall, I mean, that's kind of a general overview of what we can expect to see. But I mean, I can go into further details if folks have some questions.
Thank you so much. And I think we did, you touched on this a little bit already, about what are some of our options with the tax revenue that the state's facing right now. Obviously, we just got the report from the comptroller not too long ago. You talked about the rainy day fund and potential, cannabis legislation and the influx of revenue there. Are there any other things that you think we can do, or some others will address or try to bring up next session to try and mitigate that and give us a little more revenue coming into our state?
Well, I think, definitely, supporting any type of Medicaid expansion legislation, and, definitely supporting this comprehensive non-discrimination legislation that I plan on filing next session, making it a priority. I do have bipartisan support. This is the first time this has ever happened, that we have this type of legislation, that we're not on the defense. And this is the first time we've had two Republican legislators that have jumped on early. And so I'm pretty positive that we will be able to pass it through the House, at least, which is in and of itself progress, a step forward for us to getting this piece of legislation passed. But this piece of legislation would generate tons of money and that can be used at a state and local level. But as far as there being other pieces of legislation or other ideas that will create an alternative source of revenue, those are the ones that I can think of. So.
I know that in the past there have been discussions around the gas tax, and there may be some members. So I wasn't sure if that was something that you have heard that would be brought up again. I think right now we're just trying to figure out where we can fill the gap, and so. But thank you. I think coming from the healthcare side, obviously Medicaid expansion is something that is something that we're seeing, and with COVID, there have been, outside of just healthcare, there have been so many things that have been affecting our community. Have you heard of anything that, other than potential Medicaid expansion, anything else that could kind of aid our communities as it relates to kind of some of the deficits that we've seen, not just budgetary, but all of the different, really all of the different inequities that have come to light due to COVID, right? Things like food insecurity and all of those types of things. I know that mental health is something that was discussed last session that I think is going to be definitely discussed this next session as well. So can you talk to maybe some of the things that you think that or have been done maybe during this interim or will be done to kind of address some of the issues that COVID has brought to us?
Mm-hmm. One piece of legislation that I'll mention too, to add to the previous question. Last session I did file a bill in relation to flare taxes. And so that does show that, there's tons of money that we can generate, from having a flare tax. And so I definitely intend to file that again. Last session, there were so many issues that, that we started to address, but we dropped, the ball was dropped, or we just didn't have enough time to address some of these issues. Some of them were, the mortality rate, that was addressed some I believe it was Representative Rose that may have filed it. I could be wrong, but we're going to see some of these same issues that come up. Hopefully we were able to move the ball forward. I think that, again, like I said, it's a lot of that's going to depend on who's going to be in leadership next session in the House, who we're going to elect as our next speaker. It's going to be a tough job, especially with none of us have ever had to. This is going to be my second session, but we've never had to deal with anything like this, with especially with having a huge deficit in our budget. So we are going to, our job is not going to be easy next session, in trying to figure out how we're going to allocate the funds that we do have, because all these things are important. We need to. But the thing is that where are you going to take money from to put money somewhere else? And so it how we're going to help Texans recover from this. So many people have lost their jobs and, things of that nature. Aren't able, people are getting evicted and can't afford to pay their rent. And so, a lot of it's going to come down to also just working with, our local government, and to see how we can work together to, help the folks, of Texas.
No, definitely. I do have a couple more questions, but I want to open it up to our guests. Do any of our guests have any questions they would like to ask the representative directly? You can we can go ahead and just take them directly from you all if you have anything you would like to address or ask the representative.
Representative Gonzalez, with respect to the rainy day fund, I know your colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle have been reluctant to tap into those rainy day funds. Do you believe that there's a shift towards using those rainy day funds this session to fill out the shortfall in the budget, as opposed to perhaps resulting to additional tax revenues?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always been, that's always been something that folks have brought up in the past. And I think that throughout the state, there was a need for us to fund public education. And I think that as a result of that, elections have consequences. And I think that's why we saw, a shift in the House. We gained 12 seats last session. Part of that was people wanted the legislature to address the lack of funding in the public education, and wanted us to address the property tax issue, which that was never really addressed. I mean, I think the legislation that was passed was more symbolic. I think that's definitely another issue that we're gonna have to come back and address next session. But I think that we did it last session, and then now we're facing this huge deficit that was not expected. And so I think that, we're going to have to find the money from somewhere. And so, and I think that this is, it's not just an issue, or the pandemic hasn't only affected Democrats, right? This has affected everybody. I think that's on both sides. So I think that we're going to have to tap into the fund again. And I'm pretty sure that my Republican colleagues will probably feel the same.
Representative, thank you so much this morning. My concern is recent tweets from President Trump regarding the affirmatively furthering for housing. And as you know, those acts trickle down to the state and local level. Could you share with us your platform on workforce housing? Because it seems like we're going to need it now more than ever, given the impact of the pandemic.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. You said on affordable housing?
Workforce housing, which could be affordable, of course, but I just wanted to know if you could share with us your platform on that, particularly given that there's going to be a lot of concerns with the pandemic and lack of resources to get housing that is available, knowing we have a huge shortfall across the country, particularly Texas.
Yeah, I mean, affordable housing, this period, even, prior to the pandemic, has been, a huge issue, especially in, District 104. I work closely, which is, one of the reasons that I requested to be on the Urban Affairs Committee last session, to see, what ways that I could help the district, in regards to just affordable housing in general. I work very closely with, Senator West on several pieces of legislation, addressing affordable housing. We had some roundtables with folks to see, if we can get the ball rolling on the issue. The problem is, you hear this rhetoric, from the Republicans, unfortunately, that, they think of affordable housing, then think of crime, or they think that, and it's really hard to have that open dialogue when that is the perception of, affordable housing. But, that's definitely something that I'm going to continue working on, next session. And, I'm going to get with Senator West to see how we can continue our work together to continue addressing this issue in the next legislative session.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions from our audience. I did have, if not, please feel free to continue to post them in the chat. I did have a question about, related to education. I know that you touched on it a little bit. Last session, there was, it was the education session. There were a lot of financial promises that were made, and now we're in this deficit. But a lot of individuals are wanting to and continuing to have that conversation with the changes that TA has made, with the changes that schools are now having to face with going virtual and non-virtual. I know they're trying to figure out what some of those calculations will look like. Do you have any insight as to maybe any conversations around education, around innovation as it relates to education coming into next session?
I mean, I know that there's an education, it's like an education task force or a working group of House members that focus on public education. But it's something that it's a conversation that hasn't, that constantly continues because as I mentioned, we added more money to public education last session, but in reality, it really wasn't enough. I mean, we needed to fund at public education more, right? We need to take care of our teachers, and so we are going to face that again because there's school districts that don't have the money to accommodate the limitations that we have now with the pandemic. As far as having space, as far as limiting students in the classroom, and so that's something else that we have to look at as well. Again, like I said, our job is not going to be easy next session, and trying to figure all these things out and making sure that our school districts have the money to be able to educate our kids with these limitations.
Thank you, and that kind of brings me to my last question, and then we'll kind of close it out. But as it relates to technology, one of the things that obviously we've seen during this pandemic is just this gap in technology based on the economic stabilities of our communities. And so I know there's been discussions around potential innovative solutions on the federal side, but would love to kind of get your thoughts on anything that the state can do on that and on that level as well, as it relates to just those technology gaps. As you know, it's not just with technology with school, for example, the gaps with kiddos and families, but even now we're heading into this new world of using virtual technology for things like telehealth, telemedicine, and those types of things. So would love to get your thoughts on that as well.
I mean, I think that anything that we can do to create more jobs, that always, has an impact on that. And so, for example, I go back to the legislation I'm planning on filing, that shows that it's going to create, 180,000 new jobs just, by 2025. So I think that anything that we can do, to invite businesses, to make our city, our state, more inviting for people to come and do business, that will ultimately create more jobs, I think is something that would get us in that direction, or take us in that direction rather.
Thank you. I want to open it back up to is there any of our do any of our guests have any questions they would like to ask the representative? You can go ahead and unmute and ask your question now if you'd like. All right. Well, I think you answered all of our questions, Representative. One of the I think the last thing I will ask is, what can we do as a chamber to really assist you in your efforts for our community? What can we as chamber members, as business owners, members of our community do to assist you in your office as you prepare for the next legislative session, or even just continue the lines of communication during session?
Well, I mean, I definitely, if you're not following me on social media, it's I think on the Twitter, it's Jessica for Texas. We post pretty consistently, just trying to keep folks updated, regarding resources and things like that for the pandemic, and just anything else, right? Letting folks know about loans. I mean, there were some loan opportunities for small businesses that became available, and so I would suggest to follow us on social media, stay informed as far as, what resources may come up. And, during session, I mean, we always appreciate folks reaching out. I mean, that's how we're able to do our job. That's how we're not going to know what issues are important to the folks in our district, our business owners. If folks aren't communicating with us, if they aren't letting me know what issues they want me to focus on, what bills they don't do or don't support. And so that's always, yes. I mean, whether it's, calling our Austin office, our district office, or, sending us a message on social media, we always, please, we want you guys to reach out. We want folks to stay engaged with us.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And, on behalf of the Public Policy Committee, we thank you for joining us today. I also wanted to, I think you touched on the comprehensive non-discriminatory bill, and I think we definitely would love to see that and see how we can support you in that regard. I think you mentioned that there are some chambers that are supporting, so happy to review that and bring that up to our chair, Steve, for potential consideration with our board. And anything else you think that we should support, please feel free to send it our way so we can review it as a public policy committee and as a chamber. We definitely want to do what's best for our business community, and I think being involved in advocacy and public policy efforts this next session is going to be very vital to our chambers. So thank you.
Yeah, we'll definitely. We've had our first rollout, and then it was in Austin, and we've had a El Paso rollout, and we did El Paso. There was 3 of them, but we are definitely planning on doing one for the Dallas area. So we'll definitely invite the members, and would love for you guys to participate in that rollout.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And one last update for the Public Policy Committee before I turn it back over to our esteemed chair is we are going to be sending out, I know I talked about it last month, we're going to be sending out a survey in the next 2 weeks to all of our members and even some of our guests that have joined us in these sessions to really get a sense of what are some of your priorities coming into next session, so we can put together our agenda and be better stewards for our community members, for our businesses. And so our representative, her office could have that information and kind of know where we stand on some of these very important issues. So you'll be seeing that in your inbox here in the next 2 weeks. We'll be working on that. And again, if you want to assist our Public Policy Committee in formalizing those as we collect those survey questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I would love to have you as part of our team as we review some of these legislative priorities and make those recommendations to our board moving forward. So with that, I will turn it back over to our chair, Steve Camp, to close us out. Thank you again.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for attending today. This is the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce, so this is our centennial year. One of the things that is important to the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce is that we remain relevant and we remain committed to representation of our community, not only our business community, but the community in which we live. And so what I'd say to you about our Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce is this is not your father's this is not your father's Chamber of Commerce. And we invite everyone in our community to be participants with us and to talk about our future, both as business owners, business people, and talk about the quality of life that we have here in Oak Cliff, because we're deeply committed to our community and to the growth and development of Oak Cliff in accordance with the values that we believe are indicative to Oak Cliff, which is diversity, inclusion, that everyone is welcome, and that we have a quality of life that is second to none in the city of Dallas. So again, thank you for being part of this today, and we encourage you to be active and a member of the Oak Cliff Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.